Welcome back to EP3, a comprehensive user interface for EnergyPlus. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to import IDF elements into your EP3 file. We'll talk about importing internal load sets, constructions and materials, and individual IDF objects. Returning to our residential building, we have our two EEMs with custom windows and then with a default 50% window to wall ratio. But we don't have any internal loads. We don't have any lights, and our constructions are actually quite empty. So here we have an importer. There are a whole bunch of different ways that you can import IDF elements into your EP3 file. First thing we'll do is we'll select an internal load set to import. So these are default internal load sets built off of standard internal loads given by ASHRAE, and we have a couple different options. So this is residential, so I'll click residential and I'll hit import. Now, if we go back to our dialog, we can see we have a bunch of lights and people and some other objects that have been added to the EP3 file. So residential hardwired lights, residential plug-in lights, and we have a zone list here called residential. Now, if I had my zones or spaces named as residential, I could say dynamically update the list, but I don't, so I will just select all of these zones. Oops. Excuse me. I'll just select all of these zones as they are all residential zones. We're in a residential building. I can also import default material sets. So these are the ASHRAE 90.1 baseline sets of materials. This is for Appendix G material sets. So I will select for climate zone 5 and say import. And I can either overwrite inputs. So if I have any materials or constructions that have the same name as materials and constructions in this file that I'm importing, I can overwrite the inputs in the current EEM, or I can create new objects with a default name, or I can skip duplicates. I'm going to say overwrite inputs. I don't think any of the objects have the same name, but let's take a look. So say overwrite. And this will give me a little summary of what it was able to create. So a whole bunch of materials and constructions. Let's take another look. So now we have a whole bunch of different materials. These are all sort of insulation materials for all of our different construction types. And then we also have some window materials for different types of constructions. And if we look at constructions, we now have a whole bunch of construction types as well. So I am going to change the constructions that are in my 3D model to match the residential constructions that I just imported. So I'll double click into my exterior walls group. I'm going to right click and say select only faces, and go into my materials here and scroll down to residential exterior wall construction. Same for here. Residential, yes. Select only faces, residential exterior wall construction. Roofs, I can just do all of them. Residential roof construction. And if you're wondering how the colors are assigned, it's pretty much random color assignments. On the Floors, it's important not to recolor the floor boundaries. Those need to stay, or I'm sorry, it's important not to change the material of those space boundaries. The space boundaries are defined by that material. So say select only faces. Let's see, residential. Doesn't like we have residential unheated slab. So we'll say non-residential unheated slab. On this floor, we have 1, 2, 3. We have a bunch of surfaces that are going to be, the interior floor ceiling, we can keep the same. It's just a lightweight construction. And then the exposed floor, residential exposed floor, and glazing. If I'd imported the constructions first, this process would go a little bit faster. Residential fenestration construction. There we go. And same here. Now, the other way I could do this with, especially with glazing, would be to change the layers in my actual glazing construction. But here, I can right click and say select only components. And same here. All right, so we've changed all of our constructions to constructions that have an actual fully described construction set. So I may remove some of these ones that we're not using, just so that when I export and simulate the, we don't have a whole bunch of extra constructions in our simulation file. Just remove those. There we go. It's a bit cleaner. And you can also import individual IDF snippets. So let's take a look. So we have two different types of lights. And here, if you click this button here, you can say view IDF. So I can view the IDF for this particular object. So I'm just going to copy it and we'll just paste, we'll make another lighting object. Let's see. Extra lights. And just say paste elements. And you can have multiple IDF elements. Paste elements. And we can say overwrite. And here we go. So now we have extra lights. And that concludes the tutorial on importing IDF elements.